All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Lori Cohen. I am one of the school counselors at Cheltenham and the coordinator of the counseling department. And I am joined tonight by my colleagues, Mike DePiero and Kayla Vargas. So this evening's presentation is part one of some junior information. Several years ago, we did just one presentation and it ended up being almost 2 hours and it was a whole lot of information. So we decided to break it down into two parts. So the first part will be tonight, and then the second part will be later in the school year. So hopefully this will answer some of your generic questions and we can move on later in the school year. So first of all, welcome. Welcome to junior year. We're so glad that your students are finally back in the building full time. Hopefully everyone is staying safe and healthy. And so thanks for joining us tonight. We have found that Zoom presentations seem to be easier for parents. First, we can record them, and then you can go back and refer to information. But secondly, sometimes it's easier to jump on a presentation from the comfort of your home instead of having to come out on a school night. So thanks for joining us this evening. Again, this recording will be posted online at some point, and you can feel free to refer back to it or rewatch it if you need to. So just want to make sure that you know who your student's counselor is. So this is last names. So find who your student's counselor is. There has been a little bit of a shift in juniors this year, so you may be with a different counselor than you had in 9th or 10th grade, but these will be the counselors that will remain with your students until graduation. So here's our agenda for this evening. We're really going to be focusing on what your students should be doing. We're going to look at some testing options, what they should be thinking about, what they should be doing to get to the testing point. And we're going to start introducing you as parents to Naviance, which is our college and career search process. As you have questions throughout the night, there is a Q&A question spot for you to type. You can type your questions and Mr. DePiero and Ms. Vargas or I will be answering them as the night goes on. And then at the end, we'll have a time for questions as well. So oftentimes we're asked, what should we be doing now? First and foremost, students should be focusing on their grades. Junior year is truly the most important year in terms of the academics. This is the year that's closest to the college experience, that colleges will see full year of grades. And so this is the year that colleges really want to see students stepping up to the plate. They may recognize that 9th and 10th graders can be a little immature. They're also going to know that 9th and 10th grade was disrupted because of the pandemic. And so they're really going to be curious to see how your students achieve this school year. So please encourage them to get the grades as high as they possibly can. Keep in mind that when we do send college transcripts to colleges, they are sent in the fall of senior year before senior grades are done. So students will only have the remainder of this year to bring their GPA up. So this is a really important year for students. Hopefully, your students have taken advantage of meeting with some of our college representatives that came to the high school, either virtually or in person this year. But if not, don't fear, they will be back next year and your students can visit them when they are seniors. PSATs, your students did take those in October. Scores are available. They are on both their Naviance account, but a more detailed look will be on their College Board account. And we'll talk a little more about that later tonight. We're going to talk about Naviance, and we're going to talk about some SAT prep. What they should be doing then, starting after winter break, start looking into open houses that colleges are having. So colleges put their focus in the fall on their seniors, and then spring semester on mostly juniors, although sometimes seniors also. So they will be having college tours, and most colleges seem to be back in person for these. So look for college tours or open houses. If you're going to be taking SATs or ACTs, you should be thinking about starting those in the winter and spring, working on Naviance. Students should start thinking about now which teachers they would like to ask for letters of recommendation. Most schools are looking for 2 or 3 letters of recommendation from teachers. They're really going to be curious about some 11th grade teachers. So have your students start to think now about the teachers who they feel would write their best letter of recommendation. Doesn't necessarily have to be a class where your child got all A's. but rather if your child worked really hard and participated a lot and met with the teacher for extra help, those are the things that make a really amazing letter of recommendation. Also, start generating a list of activities that your student has been involved in ninth grade through 12th grade. 12th grade, you can anticipate what it is they're going to be doing. Summer, again, keep visiting schools. If you have to take the fall SATs, in August, you can actually start accessing college applications, and August is a great time to start filling out the applications. The more your students can do in junior year and in the summer, the better off senior year is going to be. So definitely have them work on as many applications as they can throughout the summer. They should be, again, working, on Naviance, and then juniors should be working on in their English class, whether it's this semester or next semester, a college essay. So they should leave their English class with a fairly solid essay if they take it seriously and put some work into it. But in the summer, they can fine tune it and finish it and really have a solid essay before they come back to school. Okay. So here are some resources that we have for students. Our counseling webpage has a lot of good information. Obviously, Naviance, which I will get into tonight, you're going to see some of the features you can use there. We, as your counselor, are clearly a good resource. Make an appointment either with us, with you and your student, or just ask us to meet with your students. We always love when we can talk to families together, both parents and students, and we can do that either Zoom or in person, whichever you prefer and is easier for you. And we can sit down and really make an individualized plan for your student. Intervention is a great time for students. This week, actually, we did do presentations. The counselors did presentations with their juniors, and they saw this same presentation. So hopefully your students have seen this and have absorbed some of it, and then you can begin the conversation tonight. Obviously, make individual appointments, and then ACT and College Board actually have pretty strong resources on their websites in addition to registering for the tests. So here are the tests that we're going to focus on tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the PSAT. We're going to talk about the SAT versus the ACT, and then I'm going to mention just a little bit about advanced placement tests. So let's jump into the timeline. When you should be doing testing. PSATs were done in October, scores are back. SAT, we recommend starting the second semester of your junior year, taking them if you need to in the summer or fall, and the same with the ACT. We always recommend that students take the SAT or ACT a minimum of 2 times. The reason we recommend that is the majority of schools will do something that they call a super score. Super score means they will take the highest reading section and the highest math section, even if they were tested on different months. And they will put those two together for your students' quote unquote super score. So that's why we always recommend students take the SATs twice or more. We do find after 3 attempts, scores aren't going to change. So 2 to 3 times at most is what you should take. And then if you are registered for an AP test, you will be doing that in the first 2 weeks of May. All right, so your PSAT scores are available. Your students should have received an email with how to access their scores. They can go to their College Board account, use the email that they used when they registered for the PSAT, and that's how they can access them. You can see test scores on Naviance, and I will show you that a little bit later, but College Board will have the full score report, whereas Naviance just has the straight up numbers. All right. Once you've gotten through your, and your PSAT students, like I said, school reports are available online. You can stop in the counseling office and we have the students' test booklets that they can pick up from us. And if they wanted to practice that way, this way they have the actual questions. The score report will tell them what the correct answers of each question was, so they can stop into our office and pick up their test booklet. You can get a pretty intense SAT prep from Khan Academy is one of the things we recommend. Khan Academy has a partnership with College Board. So what students will do will go to Khan Academy or go to satprep.org. You'll create a Khan Academy account. Many students actually have one because teachers use it as well. But if they don't have one, they can create an account. And when they're prompted, they can link Khan Academy and College Board accounts together. What that will do, it will ask you if you want to send your scores to Khan Academy. You're going to hit yes, send, and then you're going to get a personalized practice plan designed for your student based on his or her PSAT scores. So if your student struggled with the geometry questions in the PSAT, Khan Academy is going to practice those types of questions with them. If they did very well with basic arithmetic, they're not going to focus on that. So it's a really nice practice tool that personalizes it to each student. You do have to commit, students have to commit to doing Khan Academy. But we do see if students do put some time into Khan Academy, studies have shown that a pretty significant increase in scores. For instance, if you don't do any kind of official SAT practice, you can pretty much expect your scores will go up approximately 60 points from the PSAT. If you do 6 hours of Khan Academy, their research is suggesting that you can score as much as up to 90 points higher. And if you do 20 hours of Khan, you could see up to 115 point. Remember, this is free. There are private SAT classes, private SAT tutors. They can run you $1,200, $1,500 on up. This is a free tool, but students do have to commit to doing it themselves. In addition, I don't have a slide on it yet because it's actually very new. Dr. Lahara, Ms. Collins, and I met with a company that's going to be bringing an SAT practice to our students as well. So look for some information in January for that. We are going to be offering 2 options for students, for juniors. One is going to be that they can work on it during their intervention time. So if they are an athlete, or if they need to come home from school, or if they have a job, they can do 2 interventions a week and work on the SAT prep, or they could do 2 afternoons after school a week that we're going to be providing this. So definitely keep your eyes open for some more information as we get closer to January and starting that up. So a lot of people ask what the difference between SAT and ACT is. So actually, they are both used for the exact same purpose and for college admissions. Historically, the SAT has been used in the East and the West Coast, whereas the ACT was more of a Deep South and a Midwest test. But all colleges are using both tests equally, so there's no negative to taking one over the other. Some students will try both and see which tests they feel they are more successful at, and then focus on that. But I have put some comparisons between the 2 tests here. The SATs are 2 sections. Each section is out of 800 each, whereas the ACT is a total score of 36. You can Google compare ACT and SAT scores, and it will show you a concurrent chart that if you score this on your SAT, it's equivalent to this on your ACT. So always a good idea to consider taking both. There are some slight differences to both tests. The ACT sometimes tends to be better suited for students who are stronger in math and science. They do have a science check section. It's not vocabulary or definitions of anything, but rather more chart analysis, experiment lab analysis, and so forth. They both do have math you can see covered. And they both go up to algebra 2 and trigonometry. They both have reading, comprehension, and so forth. So SAT test information. We are giving this presentation knowing that many colleges moved to test optional during the pandemic. What that meant is that they were evaluating students holistically and didn't expect them to submit SAT scores or ACT scores. We are finding that most colleges are still offering that as an option for students. So if you have a student who is a really good student, but a not so good test taker, this is a fabulous opportunity. I do encourage you to have your students try the tests because you never know how they're going to do. But it certainly is an option to keep in the back of your mind that you may not have to submit scores for the colleges. So what does the SAT? There are 2 sections. It is scored on 200 to 800 point scale per section, and it's a $55 charge. You register at collegeboard.org over here. The ACT is $60. Again, it's scored out of 36, and that score is actstudent.org. We do at the high school have fee waivers for both tests for students who would qualify for free and reduced lunch opportunity. Obviously, everybody this year requires, but if your family is in a situation where you would qualify for the federal lunch program, or you have recently lost jobs and so forth, please reach out to your counselor and we can provide you with 2 free test fee waivers. All right, here are the remaining test dates that are left this year. We do offer the SAT at Cheltenham High School, and March and June are our test dates. So we always recommend students to take the March 12th test as juniors. This gives them still time in the spring, whether it's May or June again, to retake the test. The test program I was referring to earlier will be geared for students to take the March 12th test. So you should register for that by February 11th. Again, as I talked about, you should try to take at least 2 tests. So ideal world, your students would take a March 12th and a June 4th test. They would score fabulous, or they would score such that you say, we're not going to use the score, and then you'd be done with it. However, oftentimes kids want to give it one more shot. So there are dates in the late summer, late August, and then October, November, and December that students can still use and apply, use for applications. ACT students tests, we do not administer the test, but there are some local schools that do. And here are the dates that they are. So if you notice, they are not the same dates. So it's always an option to have kids take one of each test in February, March, or April and see how they do. So some colleges will require official score reports that need to be sent directly from the testing company. When you are registering to take the test, you can sign up for 4 colleges that can receive the scores for free. However, it's kind of early in the year and you may not know where you're applying. So at this point, you wouldn't need necessarily to do that. Also, we are seeing many schools are doing what's called self-reporting. They are allowing students to enter their SAT scores and report it themselves so they don't have to be sent to the colleges. And then once the students are accepted, they would have to send an official score report. So always look advantage when it doesn't cost extra money, take advantage of that option. We talked about some of the different test resources, Khan Academy, ACT Practice, public library, you can get the old-fashioned books, there are computer programs, and then of course we talked about the private SAT courses and tutors. Once again, I will remind you that we will be presenting some information about a program starting in January, so keep your eyes open for that in the next several weeks, maybe before break, but most likely after. Advanced placement testing, it's kind of almost too late for this at this point because you've already registered for the AP tests, but something to look forward to, and I do want to address it a little bit. We do offer 31 AP courses at Cheltenham High School. At the end of each exam, there is a test that can be used for college credit and college placement. Some may help students place out of college credit courses and earn college credits. You want to check the individual college policies on their credits. All you need to do is Google Temple University AP credits, and it will take you to a link that shows you what you need to get. APs are scored on a 1 through 5 score, 5 being the best. Most schools will start to accept and offer credits from 3 and above. So a 3, 4, and a 5 can earn students additional credits and or placement levels. You will have had to have already registered for the AP test, but those will be administered in May, the first 2 weeks of May. Keep in mind that AP testing is not used for college applications. So colleges do not consider AP scores when you are applying to college. They are simply used once you've been accepted to college to help with placement. All right, so you're going to begin the college search process. In the United States, there are over 4,200 post-secondary schools, and your job is to narrow that 4,200 down to a manageable working list. So that's where you should start be working on now. Naviance is a great resource that you're going to be using from now all the way through senior year. Naviance is a career and college database that is specific to our Cheltenham prior graduate students. We keep the data, we analyze it, and we make it available to students so it can help them inform their college process a little bit better. Through Naviance, you will be able to request transcripts, you will be able to request letters of recommendation as a senior, but in your junior year, you're going to be using it for college searches. So how do you access Naviance? It's real easy. Your student's going to go to cheltenham.org, the high school. They're going to click on students and click on Naviance. Their login information will be their 23, their first initial, their last name, L. Cohen, and then they will have to reset the password for the first time. On this PowerPoint, I have a whole bunch of slides that you can refer back to, but what I thought would be helpful is if we went and actually logged in as a student and I could walk you through some things. So I am going to log in as a student. So bear with me. All right, so I am logging into our most popular student, Joe Cheltenham. So here's what Joe's homepage as an 11th grader, what his Naviance account looks like. You can see there are some key places that you're going to have to access. Down here is what's new. As we talked about college rep visits, this is where those will appear. These top bars are really where you're going to be working. I'm going to start over here under About Me. If you go to my account, you will be able to see, come on, your students' GPA, both their GPA and their weighted GPA. It should have their address, their email, and so forth here. Go back to About Me. You can click on Test Scores. This is where you will access their PSAT, and when they take the SATs, those scores will be here as well. Okay. We're going to be focusing tonight on colleges. So when I go to colleges, the first thing I want to show you is what's called Supermatch College Search. There's also an advanced college search that's really cool, and just a specific college lookup if you have a school you're very interested in. But I like the Supermatch, and I'm going to show you how easy and user-friendly it is. So you're going to select your criteria to start, and your criteria are going to be these green tabs up top. So we're going to select criteria, and we're going to select the area that we want. So we're going to say Mid-Atlantic, but Joe doesn't really want to go to West Virginia. So we're going to X that out. Then I'm going to go to academics, and I'm going to enter some of the data on here. If he knows that he wants to be a finance major, come on. It says start typing, but it's not letting me. So let's say he wants to do, let's say he wants to do archaeology, okay? You can see already, I have 11 institutions that match just simply the location and the major I've put down. I can go through all of these admissions. Here's my GPA. But let's just say I'm feeling like I'm going to have a really good year, so I'm going to go up to a 3.4 GPA. Still have 11 things. I can put down student life. Do I want Greek life? Do I want ROTC? Do I want diversity? Am I looking for an HBCU, co-ed, men's school? I can talk about the cost. I can pick athletics. I could pick a sport. So say I'm looking for, let's say I want basketball. I can put that on here. What happened to basketball? Add a sport now. Basketball. Okay, level doesn't matter. I'm going to add. So now I'm looking at my match and I have 10 institutions. And I think, well, I like basketball, but I don't have to have it. So then I can just slide this over to the column nice to have. And this kind of helps me look at things. So then I'm going to look at these colleges. And I can click on one of these. So say I decide I want to click on Dickinson College. Okay. Dickinson is going to take, that's now going to take me to Dickinson's web web information here on Naviance. And I apologize for the speed. I think it's because we're on a Zoom call as well. So there's tons of videos that you can watch about every college, virtual tours, all kinds of information you can get in touch with here. Studies, student life. I'm going to look at admissions though to show you this because this is really cool. So I click on admissions and it will tell me that 49% of their students are accepted. Then I'm going to look at, here's the high school, Cheltenham High School's application history. In 2017, 2 applied, 1 was accepted. 2018, 2 applied. And it gives me the data from 2017. Then there's this called scattergrams. This might not be the best example. So but I'll show you this and then I'm going to show you another school. So this little blue face here is you. This is Joe Cheltenham's scores. This is where you fit in their averages. So you're kind of lower than what their scores are. Doesn't mean you're not going to be accepted. It just means that it might be a little more competitive. So say I'm like, okay, I think I want to learn more about this. I'm going to click the heart. And then that college has been added to my list of schools I'm thinking about. You can then go back home, or I'm sorry, back to Supermatch. And there are your institutions that you're looking at again. So it's kind of a cool site. You can play around with things. Obviously, the more constraints you put on, like I selected archaeology, that's a pretty specific major. If I remove that, you'll see basketball. There are 147 institutions in this program that fit my GPA range. Right, so this is a really cool tool to play around with. And it's pretty self-explanatory how to use it. The other thing I want to show here on Naviance is colleges I'm thinking about. So I'll click on that. And here are all of my schools that I put in as an interest. So let's take a look at Bloomsburg because I think this will show you the scattergram a little bit better. So again, I click on Bloomsburg. It takes me right to their page, all kinds of tours, virtual tours. But when I go to admissions, here, the scattergram, you can see we've had more students obviously apply to Bloomsburg. So you can see Joe is in this little center part. He is right in the heart of the green. So while this is obviously not a guarantee that he's going to be accepted, it's a pretty good, safe bet as long as his application is solid, he continues getting good grades, his letters of recommendation support him, that he stands a realistic chance of being accepted. So the scattergrams are a nice tool to use because it shows you where he fits in the grand scheme of things. If I go back to his colleges I'm thinking about, and I look at, say, Penn State main campus, and I go to the scattergrams, you're going to see he's still down here. He's still in that middle of the green, but it's a little bit less there than where he needs to be. So Penn State may be more of a reach school than perhaps a Bloomsburg was. Okay, so let me go back here. So that's just a real brief overview of Naviance. And again, you can also access the scattergrams from the homepage of your colleges, but this is thought I would just explain that. One thing that right now Naviance, and here's the scattergram that we were talking about. One thing that Naviance is having an issue with right now, but hopefully they're working to rectify this, is one of the buttons under colleges I'm thinking about is called Compare Me. And this is nice for those of us who the scattergrams are harder to read. Some of us are more visual than others. I prefer personally myself this kind of chart. Others like the scattergrams. But what this will do when Naviance gets it up and running again, it will show you here is your statistics. And it's then going to compare you to the schools that you've identified in colleges I'm thinking about. So if you look here, for instance, at Bloomsburg, he has a green check because their average is a 3.1. And that's what our average is. If you look at Joe's Cheltenham's SATs were a 1050, Bloomsburg was a 1051. So there's a red X, which means Joe is lower than their averages. Now, obviously, with this example, Bloomsburg at 1051 and Joe Cheltenham at 1050, that's a wash. So I would have put that as a green check. But you can see Drexel with a 1250, that's going to be harder for you to get into than a Bloomsburg would be. One thing to look at that's important is over here under acceptances. Now remember, this is Cheltenham students from 2013 to 2019. Albany State, it's kind of hard to say whether these are realistic numbers because over the last 6 years, we've only had 2 students apply and 1 accepted. Whereas at Bloomsburg, we've had 268 apply and 160. Same with Drexel, same with Penn State. These 3 are probably more realistic statistics than the Albany is. So just another tool for you to use, keeping in mind that it is just a tool. There is no guarantees. This is not a guarantee that you're going to get into this school and not that school. There are so many other factors, but it's just a really solid tool to use. When you are doing Naviance, one of the things, students can access it. You can, as a parent, can add, go on, this is again how you would log into them, but then you can add your email address and then you would get emails that we send. So I sent this afternoon around 2:30 an email reminding you about tonight's event. If you didn't get that, that means you are not signed up on Naviance. You can either email your student's counselor or you can log on to your student's Naviance account and add yourself to their account. So you will then get any emails that we send to juniors. I strongly encourage you to do that. All right. I do strongly also encourage you to log on to Naviance with your students and start playing around and looking at the different features because it's a pretty cool thing that you can use. What are we seeing in college admissions? I talked about the test optional. The majority of colleges at this point have moved away from using them. For a while, there were some schools that were not using SATs, but that were impacting merit scholarships, and there are still a handful of schools like that. But with the pandemic, the majority of colleges are evaluating students on GPA and activities and writing samples and letters of recommendation and not including SATs. If you are ever in doubt, feel free to ask your counselor whether we think you should use SAT scores or not. Also, we're seeing trends towards self-reporting. So it seems to be faster for colleges if students enter the data themselves rather than they wait for a transcript to be sent and then uploaded. So students are asked to enter their grades and their GPA from 9th through 12th grade. So we will be offering students copies of the transcript at the beginning of their senior year. Obviously, you can always get a copy of it. You just have to have your students stop into the counseling office and ask Ms. Smith for a copy if you wanted to see that. We do recalculate GPA. We will be recalculating since we've moved to block scheduling. We will be recalculating it in January and then again at the end of June once the 2 semesters are finished. So again, remember, this is your last full year to pull up that GPA. All right, so what's coming up? So January 19th, we're going to be doing curriculum night. I believe that's going to be a virtual event as well. You'll be able to hear from each department, see a little video from them and see what they're offering. February 9th, we are doing an event called the College Funding Coach. It's a financial advisor. We'll be providing information for how to pay for college. If you have any friends or neighbors who have younger kids, it's a good idea for them as well. February 24th, this is probably more geared towards seniors, but you guys are always welcome to come. We're going to ask graduates from the last 2 years to share their experiences and tips with parents and students to figure out how to transition better to college and what they wish they had known and so forth. And then March 16th will be our continuation of tonight. We'll talk about more of the college process, letters of recommendation, essays, and things like that. So what should you be doing now? You can stay in touch with us, please. Again, counseling e-blasts, they are either sent through Dr. Lahara's office or through Naviance emails. So if you're not sure if you're on them, log on to Naviance and see if your email is there. If you didn't receive any information about this night via email, contact your counselor and have them make sure your email address is correct in PowerSchool and enter you in Naviance. Email your counselor, We recognize that some of you, this is your third child, this is old hat. We recognize that some of you have kids who are very self-driven and motivated and will drive this process. And we recognize that some of you, this is your first child and you have no idea what you're doing. We recognize some of you might have students who are slightly less motivated and won't do this process without a little bit of nudging. So we are here to work with you individually. What you need, what your student needs is what we're here to provide. So always reach out to your counselor, make an appointment. We can do it in person or in Zoom, whichever is more convenient. We can work it out, but I definitely encourage you to email us and stay in touch with us. Your goal is to take that 4,200 colleges and narrow it down to a list of schools. So when you come back in September, you're ready to apply. All right, so we're going to open it up to questions. If you guys have any questions here. Oops, sorry. Oh, you want to see the list of counselors? All right, so some open questions. How do colleges view students from Eastern? So if your student is going to be pursuing a major at Eastern, that they're studying at Eastern, that's going to look very strongly. But again, you know, as long as they are doing well, I think that Eastern will be fine on their college transcript. Is the PST a good predictor of how they will perform on the SAT? Yes, I say that, but with a caveat, because remember, they took the PSATs in October. Some of the kids had not had Algebra 2 yet, which is covered on the PSAT and the SAT. So while it is a good indicator, we do often see kids going up 60 to 70 points from the PSAT. Thank you, Kelly. I'm not sure what that means. When the PowerPoint will be posted? I don't know if it'll be posted tomorrow. Typically it's the day after, but I know Mr. Kaufman, who does the posting, is away. So I'm going to guess it will be available, both the PowerPoint and the recording, on Monday. And that will be posted on the Cheltenham High School. Go to the high school's webpage and then click on the counseling webpage. And there's a section that says presentations. Should we make appointments prior to the next meeting in March? Great question. Absolutely. If you feel like you want to talk about your child and get further in this process, I would 100% encourage you to do so. If students take SAT multiple times, can students decide which SAT scores colleges will see, or do colleges see all SAT scores? Great question. Yes, you can decide which scores to send. However, there is an additional fee for that. I think you're going to find that College Board loves to charge fees for things. So you please be assured that when you do submit SAT scores, colleges will only use the highest score that you send them. So in our opinion, and the colleges kind of feel like this also, you don't really need to do the pay to extra to have only certain scores sent. Did I say kids had this presentation today in school? Some of our students had the presentation on Tuesday. Others of them had the presentation, I believe today.
Tomorrow.
When is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow, so, yeah. Half of us counselors are going tomorrow.
Okay, so they can come during intervention, listen for the announcements. However, if they missed it, make them sit down and watch my presentation here, because they can watch it again. A good score on the PSAT, it's really hard to determine because, you know, it depends on the college. Obviously, certain schools are looking for higher scores than not. So a good score is kind of a, you know, subjective score. So I hate to give a number that says it's a good score versus not a good score. So scholarships, yes. Can I speak a bit about scholarships? Yes, we will definitely be getting way more into scholarships in next meeting, and then again, way more into it in your senior year. Scholarships are available. Most scholarship money comes from the universities themselves. However, students can look for additional outside scholarships. We do have a scholarship section on Naviance. There are all kinds of scholarship searches online. Just Google scholarship searches and you can find them. So definitely available. But again, most scholarship money does come from the individual universities. Is there funding for post-high school training schools? You mean, I'm not sure what you're asking for, Ms. Brown. So yes, there is for post-high school training, you can get FAFSA and financial aid just like you would for all other colleges. If that's what you mean, that's great. If not, write your question again for us. Here's the list of counselors again. Students should begin applying for scholarships in the summer of their senior year, before their senior year. So that will be an option. That's pretty much when scholarships open for students. Occasionally we see scholarships for juniors, but the majority of scholarships are for seniors and they become available in August of before senior year. Will there be another FAFSA workshop? So there is the financial aid coach will touch a little bit about that, but also we offer a financial aid night for senior parents in October. And then in November, we offer a FAFSA workshop for senior parents to complete their FAFSA. That will be offered for you guys next year. If you're a senior parent, that there will not be another one, but if you call your counselor, we can direct you to some people who can help you with that. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I did see a question about rank. I don't know if that got deleted or what happened to that.
No, I typed in an answer quickly,
Okay,
but go ahead.
thank you. Yes. For those of you who don't know, we do not any longer use school class rank, so we will not be reporting that to colleges or to students. Should letter of recommendations come from teachers? Yes. Typically, we recommend 2 letters of recommendation from teachers, and then you can use an additional one from a coach or an employer or something like that. But typically, colleges are looking for 2 to 3 letters of recommendations. All right. Any other questions here? So we will stay on for a few more minutes if you guys have any questions. If not, thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Hopefully this was helpful. Let me go back to that college. There we go. Hopefully this has been helpful and you know who to reach out to your counselors. And we will see you again in the spring. Does the NCAA require an SAT?
Oh, no.
Do you know that one, Mustard Bureau?
Yeah. I'll be done in a minute. Sorry, I have a child that's bothering me. I'm not sure that
So does the NCAA require SAT? It used to. I think it depends on the school itself. Actually, you know what? I don't know the answer to that, Ms. Devon. If you can
I honestly don't know if they've adjusted things to COVID and made themselves test optional. They always had required it.
Right.
You know, if you email me, I'm gonna look into that tomorrow, and I could get
Thank
you
you.
a more concrete answer than that. But I don't know that they adjusted many things. I'm gonna go back on mute.
Mr. D, they all feel you. We've all been there. Can I speak to weighted and unweighted GPAs and what colleges look at? So several years ago, we surveyed different colleges in the area and asked which they preferred. And it was really completely all over the board. Some schools wanted the unweighted GPA. Some schools wanted a weighted GPA. Other schools took our transcripts and tore them apart and only used core courses. The 5 basic subjects: English, math, science, social studies, world language. So we send both GPAs and let the colleges determine what it is they are looking for. On Naviance, all of those statistics are based on the weighted GPA. Do I have any thoughts on Kaplan versus Princeton Review Prep? I don't have a preference on either of those two programs. I know that they can both be probably very comparable in terms of pricing, but I don't know the difference on whether, there are programs you'd have to call and compare them yourself. I do know some students prefer classes versus some students prefer individual tutoring. Some were more self-motivated and could do a program like Khan Academy. So you kind of have to know your individual student, but I don't know any specific difference that I could address between Kaplan or Princeton Review. Is there any outside help for the college essay besides English teachers? Not at Cheltenham, really. English teachers are pretty well trained in writing the essays and working with them. Certainly you could, perhaps there's some online program that could help you, or there's some outside tutors you could find, but really it's our English teachers who are the experts in writing essays that we do rely on. Does Naviance show the percentage of need-based scholarships provided by each college? Naviance does not show that. You may need to find that out individual by the college for information on that. Naviance, does Naviance show if the college provides merit-based dollars? Naviance itself doesn't, but the links to their websites of each individual college would show that. They do write college essays in AP English classes in junior year, and all English classes in junior year are working on essays. My guess is the AP English class will work on that after the AP test. So those AP students probably will not start the essays until May, once the AP curriculum has been covered. Thank you. All right. Are students excused of visiting a college during school? Great question. Yes, there is a policy in the attendance office. I believe it was in Dr. Lahara's email blasts for a few weeks, but basically a parent has to call them out and tell them they're visiting a college, and then students are asked to submit via email proof that they attended, whether it's a confirmation of a tour or an information session, to the attendance office in order for it to be considered an excused absence. All right, what other questions? Well, if there are no other questions, we can then say good evening, let Mr. DePiero get his little guys to bed.
Good night, guys. Thank you guys for coming. Again, half of your students or half of the students in the junior class will be hearing this presentation tomorrow, but if you guys have questions, reach out to me.
Yeah, have a good night, guys. It was good to talk to you.
To talk. And again, please reach out to your counselors, watch this video again, and let us know. During college visits, any advice or recommending things to do? Ask a lot of questions, listen, and observe. Look around at the students. What are they doing? How do they seem? Thank you all for coming.